Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dream Big interview series. This is all about talent trailblazers, and I'm so delighted I have the amazing Sharon here. Morning, Sharon. How are you in Wisconsin?
Good. How are you doing, Rachel?
I have to say, your environment, your office looks very tropical. You are in your
Well,
office?
well, I am in my office, and it's lovely in Wisconsin today. It's 78 degrees here.
Wow. Okay, so I'm in New Zealand. It's the morning. It is a blue sky. I love that. But we're around just under 10 degrees. So I'm feeling a little bit this morning. So
That's okay. That's Wisconsin winter weather.
yeah. So thank you for being part of the Dream Big interview series. And you represent what I'm looking for, which is talent trailblazers who have been in the industry, who are really making a difference in this space. So, I'm delighted.
Thank you.
So let me just give you a quick intro to Sharon. Sharon and I met in Miami. We were part of an amazing docufilm called Talent Attraction. And, like all of us, we all connected and we made a great bond between everyone that participated. And Sharon is the president of Employment Resource Group, and she has been in this business for 14 years now with 20 years experience. And she's going to share with us, what she's seen, what she's heard, and how talent and recruitment has really changed in this world that we find ourselves today. So, Sharon, what inspired you first to be part of the Dream Big interview series?
Well, there's a couple things, Rachel. First of all, obviously my respect for you and just the great dialogue we had when we were in Miami. But I think this issue is only going to get bigger and bigger. There's no question that as time goes on and we have this aging population, we are going to have a talent shortage. So if we don't help employers and candidates to look at this in a different way, I think it's going to be a real issue in the very near future. So I think those of us that are trying to be thought leaders are trying to get ahead of the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about having new conversations, really bringing these issues out, whether it be in interviews, whether it be on film, which is exactly what Chris is doing, conferences, events. This is what we're here to do. And, sharing our experience, I think, is a great way.
Yes.
So I really think, Sharon, everyone would like to know, how did you get to where you are today? You're a president of your own organization. Mm-hmm. Give us a whistle-stop tour of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I started with another executive search firm 20 years ago in June. So this month it was 20 years. I worked a construction desk for quite a few years and ultimately decided that I really wanted to do my own thing. What I was discovering is, as kind of an old school owner, the emphasis was really around the transactional nature of search, not really the emotional intelligence side of search. And I really believe that while people get jobs because of resumes, they keep them because of who they are in their heart. So bought my desk and started Employment Resource Group, so 14 years ago, so that makes up the 20 years. So that, and we've grown the business independent, and we've started talent strategies, which is around retention. So we've done a lot of things that aren't just around search, but really around helping our clients to retain people and to really be proactive in hiring people as opposed to just reactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's really brave and bold, because I'm just thinking about, 14 years ago, 20 years ago, were you one of the only women in this space? I mean, what was it looking like back then?
Yeah, when I actually started Employment Resource Group, I was one of only 3 owners in the whole network. So it was very much, and of course I was working in construction, so very much a male-dominated industry. I was one of the only female recruiters. And I always tell people that was good and it was bad. I mean, it was tough to get people to look at me as being credible, but at the same time, I was very different. I was fun and could have a good time with the guys on the phone. At the same time, showing them that I really did know the industry, but I also brought a female perspective on the heart side of people and how they would integrate into a company. And I think that's why it took off so quickly and we did so well, is because we really focused on culture, not just on this guy could build a nice building or all the things that early on we were looking at. Now we've expanded industry since then, and we do a lot of different industries and a lot of C-suite stuff. But at the time, it was really getting people to think about talent in a different way.
Yeah. So trailblazing, that's what we love. And, diversity is one of my things. So when I hear about women like you starting out, and as you say, it was an opportunity. It wasn't, it wasn't seen as, you were seen as different, but it helped you in your business.
It did. It did. And I've still to this day, I mean, we work banking and manufacturing and all kinds of industries, but I really still have this passion for my construction guys because they really understand now that it's the culture that really makes the organization grow. I have a great story, and it's a quick one. I had a gentleman I placed as a president 12 years ago. Company was doing 17 million, and through working together this year, they hit 150 million 12 years later.
Wow.
So it's such a great story to watch this individual who took on a new challenge, had never been president, and how that really focused on that culture and building the right type of organization has really proven to be successful.
Fantastic. And I totally believe exactly what you believe. Culture drives an organization.
It does.
So we're talking about talent and, global talent. We've got some challenges out there. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing corporates first?
Yeah. Well, certainly our aging population is, it's a challenge across the globe because the baby boomers have started to retire, and within the next 3 to 5 years, there's so many that are going to be of retirement age. And our millennial and the Gen X group doesn't have the numbers to take up those masses. So a lot of institutional knowledge will be leaving. I also think that we have to train employers to start to hire for competency and not just hire for resume. We still you get the same thing where they ask you, I want them to have this exact background. Eventually, there's not going to be enough people who have that institutional knowledge, and we're going to have to really look at the competency side of a person, not just what their resume looks like.
Absolutely. And, I've always been, and I'm sure you are, you hire for attitude. You can train those skills. That's
Absolutely.
And that's always been a magic ingredient and recipe for me. And so obviously we're not going to have enough millennials or Gen X to take on those roles. And that transfer of knowledge, I think that's the bit that is probably one of the scariest things that I can think about at the moment in what we're finding ourselves in. I mean, what do we need to do as a collective to bring that to the table? How do we have more of that transfer of knowledge? What's your thoughts, Sharon?
Well, we started talent strategies for this very reason. It's retention and really doing a gap analysis and then succession planning. What's happening is people are retiring and the employer's not thinking about how do we make sure that before they retire, what they do, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly gets transferred. Some of the functions that they do, they only do maybe once a year, especially on like a finance side, the year-end stuff. So what we've suggested is that they start doing succession planning actually 3 to 5 years before the person is tagged to retire if they can. And then the other piece of that is thinking about if somebody would get hit by a bus tomorrow and can't show up for work, do you have someone tagged in place that can at least in the interim allow them to be able to recover and the work gets done and not have that knowledge transfer. So by really doing great succession planning, the person is really ready when that individual retires. But it does take the leader to really believe in it for it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that the transfer of knowledge, who owns that? Who owns that responsibility? Is it HR or is it the leaders of the organization and the managers? What do you think?
I think there's a lot of stakeholders in that. Certainly, the number one stakeholder, in my opinion, is the person who's going to be retiring, especially if they know there's competencies that they only hold. So I think they're raising their hand and saying, listen, I am going to be retiring in 3 to 5 years, or I'm going to be moving on, and making sure that that is taken care of so that knowledge is transferred. I think HR holds a piece of it. And I also think the leadership of the organization buying into the fact that it's okay to talk about retirement. It's okay to talk about transfer of skills. and not, if I don't talk about it, it won't happen. Because the reality is everyone eventually retires. So I think there's a lot of stakeholders in making sure that that happens, and happens really in an effective and a comfortable manner.
I agree. So what are the biggest challenges facing? That's the organizations, and they need to get themselves ready, especially for this aging population. What are the big challenges for the candidates who are out there? So whether it be the aging population, Gen X, millennials, what's the big challenge that they're facing at the moment?
Well, I'm writing a book, and I know you know this. I'm writing a book called A Well Done Professional Midlife Crisis. And what we see is people get between 45 and 60, and they are making good money. They're in their peak retirement earning years, but they don't love what they do anymore. So I think most candidates, they really don't take the time to reflect on what am I passionate about and what am I really good at, and marry that list to find their life's vocation. They stay in a job because they're making good money, but if they're not passionate and they have to drag themselves to work every day, that's not the way that we should be living our career. So, I always say I want to find for people what I have, and that is I found the thing that I will do for the rest of my life because I absolutely love it. But it takes what I love and it takes what I'm good at and it marries it. So if I tell anybody from a candidate perspective any one thing, I tell them take valuable time and make those two lists and then really marry them, and that will help you to lead you to what you should be doing that you will really love.
Absolutely. And like you, I do what I love as well, and it just doesn't feel like work, guys.
That's absolutely right. And I tell everybody, my father used to always tell me, figure out what you love and then figure out a way to get paid for it and you'll never work a day in your life. Isn't it true? It's absolutely so true.
It's so true. And this is what we want for our candidates who come to us. We know that they're skilled, they've got the competencies, they've got the attitude, but do you really love what you do?
Yes. Well, and there's so many factors that, as our population is aging, it's new generations are taking over the company and they want to make their mark and they're changing leadership. Government regulations are changing things. I mean, there's so many dynamics that change what used to be to what is. And it's okay to realize that maybe that changes how they feel about where they're working. And it's okay, but then make the next move a really well thought out move.
Yes. And so what are your top tips for candidates? So what should they be doing, number one, and what shouldn't they be doing? Because we see a lot of candidates. What's your top tips, Sharon?
Yeah. Well, certainly, doing the list and really analyzing what it is that would be a good fit. One of the things, Rachel, that I think candidates don't do enough of is their homework on a company. I mean, really, it's so easy to get information today with social media and just even picking up the phone. Understand the culture, understand the players that you're going to be interviewing with, and if it's the right fit for them. Because a lot of people interview and it all sounds good, and then they get there and the reality is different. So I think doing that homework is really key. And, I think when I look at it, and I always think a perspective of if I'm interviewing someone, I want to know how they're going to think and act like an owner without their name on the door. Tell me what is the ROI for me as an employer. And they have to really be able to articulate that clearly. I can't tell you how many really high-level people come see me. And I always say, so if I'm going to hire you, what would be my return on investment? And they can't answer that question. And these are people who make $200,000, $300,000 a year. I mean, they need to be able to answer that question. Yeah. So that's kind of my do's. My don'ts, I would probably say, it's the traditional stuff, right? Don't ever go to an interview unprepared. I would say make notes, study the company, make sure you understand the people you're going to be meeting with and what they're like and what they like to do and, all the things that make people. Yeah. So that's obviously one. Selling themselves with confidence, but with no ego. I mean, there is a difference between confidence and big ego. Yeah. And people sometimes cross the line and they come across as arrogant. So I always say you got to practice. It's just like Michael Jordan, right? He practiced the free throw more than anybody. That's how he got so good at it. Well, same thing with an interview. It's making sure you go in and practice confidence versus ego. And then again, I always say don't leave an interview unless you know what the win is. So I always recommend the last question be, if a year from now, Rachel, you and I are sitting here and you hired me and you're thrilled with my performance, what did I do? What did that look like? Because if you know what the win is, it's easy to circle back if you didn't get the win and talk about why your experience does get the win. And typically, if they ask that question, it's pretty easy to at least clarify why they should be hired. So that's usually my don'ts as far as don't miss those points.
Great. And so, we find ourselves in this world where there are, organizations who are really looking at talent daily. It's part of every board meeting. It's part of the conversations. And we've got candidates who are looking for, that right fit, that right role for them. What do you do, Sharon, that is unique to your business? What is your proposition that differentiates your business from the rest?
Well, I would say from a client perspective, we spend a lot of time on doing a gap analysis against their strategic plan. These guys go off site and they spend 2-3 days, sometimes weeks, really putting together a game plan, if you will, for what their business is going to look like, but they never put together a talent plan. And they don't look at all the stakeholders and say, okay, so do I have the people in place to ensure I'm going to make this strategic plan and make those must-do, can't-fail goals? So what we do is once they've done that, we sit down with them and we help them to really analyze it and say, okay, who are the stakeholders that are going to ensure you're going to make this? And do you have the right people in play today, or do we need to add a player? I always say it's just like a football game. The coach is the guy who puts together the plays, right? And if he doesn't have the right players, he's got to go out and recruit players. It's no different in business. So that's a piece of it that we do different. I also think it's really helping them not only to really understand and be aware of the culture they have, but if they are not happy with the culture, one person can impact a culture, good or bad. So making sure that when we hire people, we're hiring people to lead them to the culture they ultimately want to have, not necessarily the culture that they have, or if they want to enhance it. So I think because we really do our business in a very different way, and we do it, we visit every company, we spend lots of time inside their doors, we get to know the players, good and bad, of what's going on, so that we can really impact the business through people, not just give them new people.
Absolutely. And so that's for your clients. What about your candidates? What do you do differently with them that makes them feel, I suppose, part of your solution?
Yeah, I think, there's a couple of things. First of all, it's really helping them to define what is their life's vocation. Because I think that's a piece that people get so far away from it that they're lost and they don't know how to redefine. All they know is what they've been. But we try to help them to really understand what they could be. I think the other piece too, and this is just my personality, I am so candid. One of my favorite lines is permission to be candid. And I just had a gentleman in here on Monday, and I said to him, can I be candid with you? And he said, yes. Now, this is a gentleman who runs a global business in IT. Big guy, has worked for the big guns, right? And I said to him, you have a chip on your shoulder, and it's obvious to me when I'm interviewing you. Now, I said, I'm not telling you that to be mean. I'm telling you that because I don't know if you understand that that's coming through in your persona, that, there's a little bit of poor me coming out because what the company that recruited you didn't work out like you thought it would. I said, here's the reality. We all have stuff that happens. How you deal with it means success or failure. And I said, you got to tell me why you learned through that experience, not why it didn't work.
Wow.
So I'm very candid, and I think most very much appreciate it because they don't even realize they're doing it. They need a big mom, right, who says, let me just tell you what it is that I see.
And Sharon, that's what I loved about meeting you, and that's what I love about this interview is actually I think more people need to be candid.
I do.
Because actually where you're coming from is a place of, you're actually coming from your heart. You're like, I don't want to see you fail. I'm giving you this feedback in order for you to be more successful. How you approach it is if you don't give it to them, this feedback, how are they meant to know?
Well, and I think people are just not always self-aware. I think we are aware of strengths and weaknesses because we're so used to answering that question. But I'll give you another example. I had a young gal in here, and she was probably 30. looking to make the next step in her career, so moving into a director position, and she would give me the most brilliant answers, and then she'd giggle. And I finally said, I'm stopping this interview right now. And she said, why? And I said, because every time you answer me, you give me these fabulous answers, and I can tell that you are more than qualified, but then you giggle and you take everything away. And I said, I don't know that you even realize you're doing it. She said, I had no idea. So you do need someone who can just be, in a very loving way, just very honest about what you see, because it helps them. I guarantee you she might still do it, but she'll be aware every time she does it, and she'll do it less and less and less until she just comes across in that boardroom as being brilliant. And we can watch her career take off.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think it's a real unique characteristic of yours, Sharon, that really comes to play for the candidates. Keep doing it. So we're into the wrapping up of the interview, and I could talk to you for hours, I must say, but I really want to share with the audience, or for you to share, what is your dream big goals for the next year, so 2015, 2016? What's on the horizon for you professionally and personally, Sharon?
Yeah, well, I know you know this. We just wrapped up Top Recruiter 4, Season 4. Reign of the Bosses, and the really just an amazing experience. Chris Lavoie asked me to be one of 2 bosses. So that was a wonderful, talk about being able to be candid. That was a wonderful experience to take these recruiters and really advise them through this contest, if you will, to get to the gentleman and or lady who won Top Recruiter. So I'm excited to see it once it's edited and see the season, but that was a great experience. For me personally, as far as the business and what I'm working on, I'm really working on the talent strategy side. Search is always there and keeps us crazy busy, but really helping companies to get more proactive in their hiring, and really not just helping them to find people, but retain them. So we've been spending a lot of time going out and doing career pathing and those sort of things to really empower employees to own their careers, as opposed to blaming the employer that they didn't get promoted. Now it's up to them. They know the path, right? So we're working on that. Personally, I'm a single mom of an almost 16-year-old daughter who's getting her driver's license. So I think, Rachel, personally, it's to keep my head on straight while my daughter's getting her driver's license.
I love it. And I love seeing your photos of you and your daughter. You obviously have something very special together.
I have the best kid in the world.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And what about travel? I know you love to travel as well. Anything coming up?
I have a few trips this fall. I have a trip coming up that my daughter and I always take the week of my birthday, which is in a couple weeks. So we'll be doing that, and that's more of a regional trip. I did promise my daughter that for her 16th birthday, I would take her to Paris. So it's coming up in October. She's going to be turning 16. So I don't know that we'll go in October, but we are planning our trip to Paris and London and that whole circle. So we're really getting excited about that. So that's, but I do love to travel. If I could just travel for a living, I'd be happy.
You and me both, Sharon, you and me both. So how can people get in touch with you, Sharon? How can candidates and corporates come and be part of your world? What would they do to get you?
Well, certainly they can email me, sharon@ergsearch.com. That's an easy way to get a hold of me. And then obviously starting dialogue. I'm very active in writing, so I'm very active on LinkedIn and all kinds of places that I'm always writing. And LinkedIn is a great way to find me, because I write for LinkedIn every other week. I send it to the editor of LinkedIn, so that's great. And obviously phone number 920-996-9700, easy to remember. So, we're out there, so they can find us.
And I know that you've got a special project. You're writing your book, so please tell us about your book.
Well, my book, like I told you, the title of it is A Well Done Professional Midlife Crisis. The book is due out this fall. So we have a deadline of having it out on bookshelves in October. And it really is just a real personal journey for people about all the reasons why things don't feel like they used to feel when they were younger, and that finding your life's vocation. And it really, it's a journey, should I say or should I not? It doesn't automatically say you have to change jobs, but it really takes them through all the things they really need to think about to make that decision. And it's, you know, it's based on 20 years of talking to many, many people who are just like the person who's reading the book saying, should I stay or should I go? What is the best decision for myself and my family?
Wow. So when that's out, please, and I'll follow you anyway. I'm really happy to promote it and share it with everyone. And it sounds like October sounds like a good month for you. You've got your daughter's birthday, launch of a book.
Yes.
Sounds like a big month.
It's been a crazy year between the docufilm and Top Recruiter. And, you know, I just was inducted into Pinnacle Society, so that involves some travel. I'll be going to Aruba, and also in October, book coming out. I mean, 2015 has been just a really, really incredible year for me.
2015, the year of Sharon.
Yeah, thank you. I love that.
So I'd like to thank you for being part of the Dream Big interview series, along with all of my guests. And, you know, it's been a real pleasure. And I know that we will connect again somewhere, someplace. I just have this feeling that I'm meant to stay connected with this great group of people I met through Chris. So thank you.
Well, Rachel, I have nothing but admiration for you, and we will stay connected.
We will stay connected. So you have a great evening. I know it's your evening, and we'll connect soon. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.